Jose Manuel Barroso is confident Europe will be able to meet the challenges of the current financial crisis. After the recent election of Barak Obama and on the eve of a European special summit, the President of the European Commission has been replying to questions from Euronews. So what about the transatlantic relationship? The Washington summit? This in an exclusive interview.
Monsieur le Président, bienvenue sur euronews.
Mr. President, welcome to Euronews and thanks for this interview. First of all, in what way is Barack Obama better than other US presidents?
In Europe, people are expecting a lot from this American president. I think for several reasons the conditions are right for us to work together for the advantage of everyone. So on the financial crisis, on the global agenda for prosperity, for trade, UN objectives for the millennium, for the development of international aid, for the promotion of peace, human rights and the fight against climate change. As a candidate for election, President Obama put forward some very concrete proposals. I hope we will have some fruitful work together, good cooperation with the new American administration.
But when you speak of, say, protectionism in the economy, is this just speculation or a risk we might face with Obama?
Can I tell you something? Certain leaders in the developing world, most of them on the left, have told me privately that they would have preferred a Republican candidate to win. That's because they fear the protectionist policies of a Democratic president and Democratic Congress. I hope that President Obama will not yield to this protectionist temptation. I believe that will be bad for all, in particular for Europe. We're the largest exporter in the world. Sure, it's in the interest of all of us to defend our interests, but from the perspective of keeping interdependence open for us, globalization is about openness and interdependence. It's not simply that we're being open with the rest of the world and don't accept interdependence, as there was a slight tendency to do in the early days of the Bush administration. You can't say we're for interdependence, want multilateralism, and then return to protectionism.
Precisely, the G20 summit will naturally be a test of that, also a test of transatlantic relations after the arrival of Obama. Now, do you think Obama's open to greater regulation on international finance in this crisis?
I believe in theory, ideologically, the new administration on this subject will be closer to the European position. We're for open markets and markets with rules. I said that a few days ago at Camp David. In the same way that open companies need rules, in particular the rule of law, the markets also need rules. And the document which we're preparing for this conference, the European document, is not so different from the American proposal. So the Americans have understood things can't continue like before on Wall Street.
Do you think Europe will be able to seize the moment? Because you can see splits in policy between European states. Are they all able to sit down at the G20 summit in Washington with a coherent strategy and a concrete position?
I hope we will all arrive with a clear and coherent policy. I think we're very close to achieving that. Sometimes the opposition we have in Europe is not so much those who want less or more intervention. It's a question of being pragmatic. To give you an example, a concrete example, the United Kingdom, which is not naturally in favour of greater regulation and intervention in the markets, was, and can I remind you, the United Kingdom was one of the first to nationalise a bank.
à faire la nationalisation d'une banque maintenant. C'était avec Northern Rock.
That was Northern Rock.
Donc, quand il s'agit,
So when the need is there, sure, you will see intervention in the
on a
markets.
bien sûr reconnu le besoin d'une intervention sur le marché. Et donc, je crois que
And so I believe now we have the right political conditions to put forward the European agenda, and that doesn't amount to interventionism.
un agenda qui n'est pas l'interventionnisme. Nous ne sommes pas
We're
là
not
pour
for interventionism, we're for a good performance of the markets,
Nous sommes pour
we're for a
une
social market economy.
Est-ce que l'euro, la monnaie unique, aurait besoin
The euro, the single currency, would it need economic control like proposals for others?
par ailleurs proposé?
Nous devons avoir une politique
We
économique
must have a more integrated economic policy.
d'expliquer aux
It would be
citoyens
very difficult to explain to European citizens that when there's intervention on the financial markets, when there's been action to support banks, that we've been able to arrive at a joint position despite national differences.
principes communs. Et alors, quand il s'agit
But when it comes to the real economy that affects people's everyday lives, then we can't come to a joint position. Well, they'd be right to ask why. This is the reason for which I think, yes, we must make progress for a grand coordination of economic policies at the European level.
économique au niveau européen.
Mais quand vous parlez de coordination,
But when you speak about coordination, you could say there's already, in any event, a Eurogroup with the president, and that's enough.
que cela est suffisant.
What could we add without creating reservations among some member states?
Créer des réticences justement par rapport à des autres États membres.
Écoutez, là, sur le...
Listen to the words economic government.
Il y a une certaine rhétorique.
There's a certain rhetoric, certain semantics here. I don't want to get into that debate.
Je suis pour
What I can say to you is that I am for, the European Commission is for, a reinforced coordination of economic policies in Europe.
Bien sûr, non. Parce que la
That doesn't mean harmonization because there are different conditions.
n'est pas la France.
Germany is
l'Espagne
not
n'a pas la même
France. Spain doesn't have the
position
same
que
position
la
as
Grèce,
Greece.
ou l'Irlande, ou
Ireland
le
the
Danemark.
same as
Donc, c'est
Denmark.
une erreur.
So it would be wrong to claim harmonization.
Mais qu'il y ait
But as we're all in the same market and in the Eurozone,
pays de la
we
zone
all have the same money.
avec la même monnaie.
There's an obligation, even a duty of cooperation, of coordination of economic policies,
De coopération,
because our
de
economies are effectively
coordination de
tied together.
économique. Parce que nos économies sont effectivement
That's why we should be able to do this reinforced coordination. We're all in favour of this way.
de cette voie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci à vous.